Okay, at least I got it ready. We're chapter 31. We're in internal fluids. Internal fluids and respiration. First part of this dealing with circulation. There is a lot of questions on the test about circulation. And what did I do with every paper I had? And I want to go over a few things. The beginning of this chapter talks about internal fluids and difference in intracellular and extracellular spaces, and they even use terms like blood plasma and interstitial fluid. But here's the bottom line on it. Most of the water in your body is found inside the cell. Your body's made of about 65 to 70% water. Outside those cells is extracellular fluid. Sometimes it's called interstitial fluid. It ends up being plasma, which 90% of plasma is water. So plasma, water, extracellular fluid, intercellular fluid, interstitial fluid, it's water. It's water carrying stuff in and out. That's all it is. And so this beginning section here, which I believe is 680, 690, somewhere along in there, they have the same thing in your book, so you don't have to kill yourself writing it down. It's right there in the book as far as your breakdown. Now, what I have here is just what it's doing. This is some stuff we talk about in physiology. Your other circulatory system besides your cardiac or circulatory system there is the lymph system. There's no technical pump there, but your pump would be muscle contraction. Would you agree the more you move, the better circulation you have? Yes. The more you sit around, you ever sit in one place long enough that your leg goes to sleep or your foot goes to sleep or something goes numb? Move around if you want to move some body fluid around. So the lymph system plays a huge role. You know, for instance, blood plasma carries stuff to the cells. It gets out into the extracellular space, enters the extracellular space, and what needs to go in the cell ends up in the cell in the intracellular space. Then it comes back out, waste does, into what's called the interstitial fluid, which then flows into the lymph system, where the lymph filters it, the lymph nodes filter it, and then sends it back to the bloodstream by way of the left and right subclavian veins. So it ends up, water is just going through all this, carrying stuff in and out. That's all it comes down to. So lymph does play a big role, though, in that filtering process, for sure. Major lymph nodes here is the tonsils, thymus, spleen. Those are all major. So with that said, let's look at these blood components. This is where your book has this in there. Down here at the bottom, plasma makes up 55% of your blood. 55% of your blood is plasma. 90% of that 55% is water. Is that confusing? 90% of plasma is water. What else makes up, and this is about 7%, your plasma proteins. You have albumins, globulins. There's different kinds of globulins. Typically you have more of those in the month of October than any other time. Right at the end. It's a bad day, wasn't it?
That was pretty bad.
Globulins. And then fibrinogen. Fibrinogen's in there for clotting, but your most abundant by far is your albumins. Really, it's the same thing as egg white. Egg white's albumin. So we have egg white cruising around in our system, doing its job. And of course, all the globulins, whether it be alpha, beta, gamma, whatever, they're all dealing with immunity. It's all in the immune process somehow. And then the 3% that makes up this 55% of plasma is dissolved gases, oxygen, carbon dioxide, things like that, that's gonna be dissolved in there. We don't carry a lot of dissolved oxygen, but we carry some. We don't carry a lot of dissolved carbon dioxide, but we have capabilities of carrying some, and it does help get it transported. Especially if we're going intracellular, extracellular, back in the system where we can get to the lungs and get rid of it. And then the second here is formed elements. So 55% of blood is plasma, 45% of blood is formed elements. So a lot of liquid here, more liquid than solids. That's a good thing. If we had more solids than liquid, it'd be hard for the heart to pump this baby, wouldn't it? To be pumping sludge. And if you're dehydrated, that's what it ends up pumping anyway, because we have to maintain a fluid level in the blood. To get that, we steal it from the cells. Cells is a major storehouse because if 65% of your body's water and most of that's found in the cell, if you're dehydrated in your blood volume, we're going to steal it from the cell to keep blood volume liquefied so we can keep moving it. If we just take it from the blood and solidify it, you're dead. I mean, it's not going to move. It's harder to move water or sludge through a water hose. That's why they call it a water hose. They call it a sludge hose. Now, some of us have vessels that look like sludge hoses, probably from all that bacon we've been eating, right? So the formed elements are red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. Red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. Red blood cells, they give you a number here. That 5.8 on this upper end, that's more in the male end of it. 5.1, 5.2 is the female end of it. 2.5 million made per second. Lifespan, 120 days. And then they're destroyed. But, you know, neat thing about red blood cells, they carry oxygen. We obviously need a lot of them, but they're recycled to do different things. The iron in them's recycled to make more red blood cells, because if we don't have iron, you're anemic, right? And that one form of anemia. And we take the other components of it as it's broken down by the liver and spleen and make bile out of it. And then bile is used to help break down fats in the small intestine so we can digest McDonald's burger we had for lunch, or that bacon we had for breakfast, right? That stuff that's trying to clog our vessels. Well, we get that broken up. This one doesn't make any sense to me. In the small intestine, we throw some bile in there. We help break up these large globules of fat into little small globules of fat. Now they'll actually fit into these little pores in your small intestine called lacteals. That's where your fat's absorbed. Well, that goes directly to the lymph system. What does the lymph system do? Send it right through the filtering process, right in some subclavian veins, and dump it in your blood flow system so we can go clog a vessel somewhere. So there's how healthy we are. And knowing that now, you ought to back off. Boy, all right, I want to quit with that 2 pieces of bacon instead of 4. Or in some cases, I'm just going to eat a pound today, not 2. They said 1. They didn't say 1 piece or 1 pound. I'm going with pound. So it's all in knowledge. Sometimes it's scary, but that's where it is.
No, wait 1 second, please. Can you wait 1 second? You move your hand.
I am trying to film this and move along. You're killing me.
I'm like right at the end where it says second.
The people that's watching this video at home, they're saying, who is that girl? Who is stalling this?
Well, they should know that I'm trying to take notes.
Hey, can you flash the camera over on her?
Okay. She wasn't there.
Sorry. So the iron's reused, slightly less in females for some reason, not sure why. Liver and spleen breaks them down 120 days. White blood cells, you have a couple different categories here. You have granulocytes and agranulocytes. The granular live 12 hours to 3 days. Basophils, the eosinophils, and neutrophils. We spend quite a bit of time with this in one of the labs in physiology. And I'll tell you, basophils, it says most cells, that should say mast cells. And here's our theory on basophils. We believe that they migrate out into the tissues and become mast cells, which produce histamine, which causes inflammation during times of allergic responses or tissue damage. So this is where we think the histamines come from. Like if you get a bruise, a swell up, a knot on it, swell up, a bee sting and we swell up, this is where it comes from. This is the theory. Ultimately, do we know this for a fact? No, that's why this is 3 hours of theory and 2 hours of lab. This is all theory. Ultimately, we absolutely know nothing about basophils, but we think we do. Does that help? That makes us almost smarter, doesn't it? So eosinophils, we've got this one nailed down, even down to blood tests and things like this that we can check this for allergies. Eosinophils deal with allergies, whether it's a parasitic allergy or a dust mite allergy or pollen, which is getting bad this time of year right now. You have any sneezing fits lately? Well, there's some days it just, I sneeze so hard, I nearly gave myself a crick in my neck the other day. Almost threw my back out. When I sneeze, it's like an explosion. It must be something really bad. I scare the whole family when I sneeze. They thought that something happened really bad. So that's eosinophils. Neutrophils are most abundant phagocytic cell out there, and they're considered the first responders to actually show up to a site of infection and start fighting the battle. First responders. And then here in the second category, agranulocytes, you have your largest and your smallest. Lymphocytes, the smallest of all these white blood cells, and second most abundant. Live for 100 to 300 days. And then monocytes are your largest, most phagocytic. There you go. You're gonna sneeze. Most phagocytic cell, and it kind of comes in there toward the end to clean up the mess. It makes sense being phagocytic. So that kind of breaks down your red blood cells, white blood cells, and the third one that would be listed in here would be platelets. I don't even see that I have it listed. As far as numbers, it's very small. Platelets come from a much larger cell called a megakaryocyte, and platelets are fragments of that. They still serve their purpose in getting blood clotting taken care of, which is the next thing that we jump into on this particular category. Now, in your text, as we follow along here as well, they talk about the proteins and the red blood cells and white blood cells and different kinds of white blood cells, all in 690 and 691. And then they go into the blood clotting mechanism. And the blood clotting mechanism probably is better talked about down at the bottom of this. There's a lot of things that go on during an injury. They'll tell you there, we have an injury of tissue. Endothelial cells release Willebrand factor. Well, that's one of 12 factors involved in blood clotting mechanism. It's a domino effect. If you line up, stack up dominoes, and you're gonna make them all fall, but tipping the first one, and you pull one out back here, the rest of those don't fall, do they? And that's exactly what happens in a lot of these physiological functions that happen in the body. Platelets become sticky. That's because they're covered with ADP, which is adenosine diphosphate, which is a glucose byproduct. Sugar, it's sticky, right? Well, don't you love to drop sweet tea in the kitchen floor? You mop it for 3 days and still stick over in the corner where you missed it, right? Platelets begin sticking to the edge of the wound. ADP, which is this byproduct of glucose. Serotonin, which is a vasoconstrictor at this point, and thromboxane are released and cause vasoconstriction. Other platelets become sticky and form a plug. So in the process of this plug, we call it a scab, don't we? Cut yourself and you bleed for a while, and then you've got this little red scab on. This is what happens. We have the injury. Platelets see the injury and release prothrombin. Prothrombin is a plasma protein. It's cruising around in the bloodstream inactive. Now you think about this. If it's cruising around active, we could be clotting anywhere, anytime, any place. We just want to clot places that we've got a hole and we're losing, okay? So we activate prothrombin, which converts thrombin to fibrinogen, okay? Which converts into fibrin. So we have inactive, active, inactive, active, chain reaction. Once we create fibrin, if we take a wound here, fibrin starts connecting to the sides of the wound, just like a net. And as blood starts flowing through there, blood's flowing at a much slower pace because we have vasoconstriction up here. See, these different chemicals have come into play, and we have vasoconstriction. ADP's made it sticky. So we're slowing down and we're sticky, and we come in contact with air. Air dehydrates the blood cells and shrinks them, and they're sticking to the sides of the wound as well as to the fibrin, and they start stacking on each other because they're each one of them sticky. After a while, we clot it, right? Now, all this exposure to air, we say, oh, air is good for a wound to heal. It is correct, because it dehydrates the blood cells. They're still stuck together. It dehydrates them together, and they're so stuck to the sides of the wound, this wound now is about that wide, because it actually creates your own little sewing kit. Pulls the sides of the wounds together. And so if the wound's this big when it happens, when your scab finally comes off, we have scar tissue in here, but it's about half the size it was, sometimes less. That's a pretty cool deal, isn't it? So if it's a large wound with pretty high pressure, and they tell you put pressure on the wound, what are you really doing? Slowing blood flow down, giving it a place for it to stop and stick to, right? Give it a place to stop and stick to. So all these things are extremely important for blood clotting to occur. Let me ask you this question about blood clotting. Would blood clot faster on a wound that's created by a sharp instrument or a wound that's created by a dull instrument? It would clot faster on a sharp instrument. And why? What's our reasoning behind this? Because cleaner cut. We agree? Anybody disagree? No rebels in here, are there? You disagree?
I scratch it
I think that was a sign that I kind of disagree, but don't let them know that I disagree. Either that or you have a booger on your nose, not sure. Well, your reasoning is bogus. Because if I cut myself with a sharp instrument, these sides are going to be so slick, it's going to be hard to attach to. Would you agree? Y'all agree? Your mom wears combat boots. Do you agree?
No.
You agree with everything else. I thought I'd slip it in on. It's like y'all agree with everything I'm saying today. So these sides are really sharp. So you ever cut yourself shaving? I mean, we run around with half toilet paper on our head, right?
Yep.
And that's because the wife actually took the razor and shaved her legs, cleaned it, put it back, and we was in the shower and we almost cut her jugular, but that's all right. She's got a life insurance policy. She'd be better off without us. Already got the kids here. We were just used for that anyway. We're donors. That's all we are. I'm glad I got that on the check. I can't believe I put that on film.
I didn't see that.
I'm gonna have to delete that. That was editing.
Might be a
Now,
long
you ladies have
at your house.
cut your legs shaving, right? Did it bleed? Yeah, it's just like, oh man, I'm bleeding profusely. It was just a nick, right? Well, it was a pretty sharp instrument you used, wasn't it? I mean, we don't really bleed a lot on the neck and head because by the time we use the used razor, we're scraping ourselves to death because it's so dull. We're taking a layer of skin off. So you think it's funny?
Yeah, I do. I do that to my husband.
Complain?
That's just mean. But we need the jagged edges of a dull instrument for more surface area for blood to attach to. Okay? So with more surface area, blood attaches, we clot up. Yeah, it's an uglier clot. It's an ugly, we have scar tissue. It's an uglier wound. It doesn't heal back. A doctor doesn't use a dull instrument. Thank goodness. Get a hold of this baby. We're going to have to jerk it through the wound here.
What insurance do you have?
Yeah. Get the dull one. Well, they got good insurance. Blue Cross Blue Shield. Let's get the good sharp stuff. But, you know, they're going to, you think, well, they really bleed a lot. And you take that sharp instrument, dig a little deeper, and nick a major vessel, that's pretty serious stuff. But when they know what they're cutting and they know what they're doing, and when they're finished, they'll take threads and pull that together, slow the blood flow down, and the threads will actually provide surface area for the clot to start.
Or
coming
glue
in
it
contact
together
with.
more.
Yeah, then they may put glue on top of that. So,
Or in some cases, they'll just put
a lot of cases these days. I love the staples, you know, hey, what you, yeah, they had fun, they just, they had those big staples. Wonder why you have bruises, you know, but, they'll heal.
They go away,
The bruises,
the staples.
they just dissipate
Dissolve,
now.
they
We got
dissolve.
dissolvable staples, you kidding me? Don't you love what the stitches are made of? You ever read one of those stitch deals that they pull the thread out of? Hand me the cat gut. It's made out of cat gut.
Oh, good.
Those will dissolve inside. Yeah, there's some made out of sheep. There's some that they'll use on the surface that won't dissolve, that you'll take out in 14 days. The ones under the surface that we're not gonna cut another opening and go get it out. We want it to dissolve. Yeah, go get me some cat gut. Let's put some cat gut in there. That ought to sew it right up. You know, some things we just don't wanna know, do we? Yeah, doctor used some cat gut to sew my hand up. Stronger than ever before. Oh, there's some funny things out there. Some things are used in medicine y'all don't want to know about. And some things we just don't want to even look into it. All right, so now we're over on 693. We're looking at open and closed circulation. Open and closed circulation. Now we're doing some human, animal, mammal comparison back down to some small vertebrates to some invertebrates. Would you say our circulatory system is an open system or a closed system? What's your definition of a closed system? So we could quickly create an open system, couldn't we? Just a major slash with a sharp instrument, and well, we've got an open system.
Because you have a
Confined
circular,
into vessel.
a circulatory system that,
It stays within itself.
Yes.
We may start at some point and we end up in that same point and we don't go out of the body. We'll throw that in there to help you out back there. Appreciate the input there. An open system doesn't really have a major pumping organ, and a few of them do have a heart, but they don't have a set of vessels. They'll pump it out into the tissues, and then the movement of the animal moves the endolymph, is what a lot of it's called, within the tissues, and it takes a lot more fluid for an open system. A closed system's more efficient because it's more confined and more directly delivered. Open systems just it's like painting that wall. Grab the bucket. Whop! Yep, that's close enough. It looks good. We're going to go with that. That's an open system. A closed system is we've got a sprayer. Before we're done, it's perfect. Now, it takes a lot more blood for an open system, a lot less blood, and we're more precise what we're doing with a closed system. So, we obviously have a closed system, and most animals we're familiar with are all closed systems. You get into grasshoppers, a lot of invertebrates, worms and things. A worm has 5 aortic arches, and it's considered a closed system. Those aren't really hearts, although some books will call them hearts. So, but it just circulates with itself. But what really circulates a worm's blood is their movement as muscle contracts, just like we help our circulation along by getting up and moving around. Circulates the blood. All right, this brings us to the heart as a double pump. We have 2 systems coming from the heart. We have the systemic system and we have the pulmonary system. Now, a lot of these terms tell you where we're headed or what we're doing. Pulmonary is in reference to what?
lungs.
Lungs. So the pulmonary is the right side of the heart going to the lungs. It's a low pressure, low resistance. We don't want to come out of the right side of the heart pumping all kinds of pressure. The lungs are about that far behind it. So we come out of there throwing all kinds of pressure. The lungs full of capillaries. We'll just be blowing capillaries right and left. Low pressure, low resistance. We just need to get it there, get it scattered throughout the lungs, get our gas exchange, come back from the lungs, and enter into the left side of the heart, which will then create the systemic circuit. Systemic is everything else but the lungs. Which side of the heart would you assume has to work harder?
Systemic.
The left, the systemic. pumping from the top of your head to the bottom of your feet. It's a bigger chore than pumping a few inches or centimeters behind you to the lungs. Now, the lung is a big organ, but we're going to a lot of organs and a lot more territory. So if we looked at a heart, cross-section the heart, laid it open, could you determine left side compared to the right side? Even if we twist it, flip it, turn it over, whatever, we should be able to tell the thickness of that outer wall is much thicker on the left side than it is the right side, much thinner on the right side. Therefore, a heart really looks a little odd shaped, because it'd be like us taking weights and working out all on we're working right leg and right arm with a bunch of weights, and left side we're not doing anything. After a while, we'd be bulked up on this side. Look at that weird dude. It's kind of the way the heart is. It looks like it's twisted, but one side's just more muscular than the other.
Does it make the muscles stronger if you have like COPD or emphysema?
Make them stronger. They will compensate to an extent, and it's like anything. If they have to overcompensate for a long period of time, then we become wear out
Right.
portion. But it's pretty amazing what it can do and how long it can do it. I think at the beginning of this chapter, it told us how many times it beats in a lifetime. It's crazy numbers that I think the very first page it told us that. I think I started that introductory. About 5 liters of blood, contracted some 2.5 billion times and pumped 300,000 tons of blood before it stops. We're guessing that's based off probably around 68 to 70 years worth of calculations there. That's a lot. So on the test, when I ask you how many times, a lot. It's a really good answer. How about the answer that would say, hopefully mine more than normal, you know, that would be above average, you know. You don't want to be below average on this heart rate thing. But is strength of a heart, is that genetically inherited? I think you see that in longevity in bloodlines and families. I know we certainly see it in animals. There's lineage of horses that's living 30-something years.
Gallbladder disease is genetic.
Do what?
Gallbladder disease is genetic.
So is diarrhea. It runs in the genes just like gallbladder disease. Got that on film too, didn't I? And I just keep throwing it out there at you.
It's his best one ever.
It's my best, so I can't beat it, so I just keep throwing it out there. Let's look at the actual circulation through the heart now. And this page should actually be in your notes somewhere, if you have your notes available. Should look something like this. Is that camera picking this up, or is it below it, or?
No, it's on it.
It's on? Okay. This is basic circulation. It's not fetal circulation. This is just basic adult circulation with no major differences. It's just, we're gonna start at the right atrium. Y'all all have it?
I think you should just remake our notes for us.
Do what?
I think you should just remake our notes for us.
No.
Apparently we don't have any.
I'm just gonna copy you more notes. Yeah, you can jot it down. What else you gotta do, right?
Are you gonna move it too fast?
Yep. Are you finished? Cause I'm about done with this. We're gonna start at the right atrium. We're bringing blood in the right atrium, and as it fills, almost immediately the blood starts going into the ventricle. In fact, 80% of the blood in the atrium will be in the ventricle by the time the atrium finishes. So it's just simple diffusion. We go from right atrium through the tricuspid, which is relaxed at this point, into the right ventricle. The right ventricle will pump through the pulmonary semilunar valve, which this is headed toward the lungs, to the pulmonary artery, to the lungs, and back by pulmonary vein. So let's look at a couple of general rules. Does that really take a good picture that far back where you can zoom it in and see it?
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
My iPhone does that, but I was trying to.
What phone is that?
Windows.
That's a Windows? That's like a mini computer.
It sucks for everything else.
Okay.
Don't get
This-
good.
Takes good pictures.
Hey, note two is.
Now they come out with camera phones that do a little bit of talking and stuff, right? But they're really specialized in cameras. What kind's that?
That's a Galaxy Note 2.
A Note 2.
That's what I
They
have.
have
It's
a
awesome.
3 out now, don't they?
Oh, they're fixing to.
Fixing
They're
it in
fixing to.
October.
And it actually takes a really good picture. I've got it zoomed up as far as better.
Well, the newer ones are coming out with higher pixels and everything with it, so.
It's nice
So
and
you
clear.
can take that and zoom it and
Yeah.
pull it up. Cool.
Yeah, and it's actually nice and clear.
Don't let me ever let you see those out on test day.
Okay.
I'm gonna assume you're cheating. Okay, so there's a couple of general rules here we need to talk about. All arteries carry blood away from the heart, true or false?
True. False.
Okay, you've answered both ways. Which one's it gonna be?
True. False.
All the ventricles.
Did you say carry it away? Ventricles carry it away.
I'm gonna rephrase it. I'm gonna say it again. I'm gonna rephrase it. I'm gonna say it again. All arteries carry blood away from the heart.
True.
False.
That is true.
Away from the heart?
They put it into the heart and take it out, don't they?
No, the ventricles bring it
Arteries?
in, the arteries take it out.
Yeah.
Y'all not planning on being heart surgeons, are you?
No.
Wait, what
That's
did you
good.
say, a ventricle or artery?
I'm gonna say it again. True or false? This is a quote off the test. All arteries carry blood away from the heart.
True.
Whatever Lucy says is gonna be it. Give me an answer, Lucy. You've got a 50-50 shot. Oh, now she's gonna study real fast. That's like cheating, isn't it?
Okay. Sure.
It is true. And that was a lucky guess, because it's true. Arteries, carry away, okay? Arteries carry blood away. All veins return blood to the heart.
Gotcha.
True.
Yes.
Now, it's probably knowing there's some kind of freaky exception in this deal. This is what was messing with you. If we say all arteries carry blood rich in oxygen, is that true? Are you guessing again, or you just want one to be false eventually? All arteries carry blood rich in oxygen. Well, let's find an artery. Let's look, pulmonary artery. Where's the pulmonary artery going? You think it's rich in oxygen if it's going to the lungs? No, it's going to go get oxygen. So that's your exception to the rule. That's the only artery that's not carrying blood rich in oxygen. Okay, so there's your exception to the rule. And if I said all veins carry blood lacking oxygen, there's only one that carries blood rich in oxygen.
Say true.
That's the pulmonary.
This is the only vein that carries blood rich in oxygen. So when I say all veins carry blood lacking oxygen, that's false, because that one carries it rich in oxygen. Majority of them, yeah, it's true, but there's that exception. And look where it's coming from, the lungs. What did it get there? Oxygen headed to the left side of the heart, the systemic part of the heart, which is going to pump the oxygen to everywhere else, dry. So once we get back to the left atrium, again, the blood comes through the bicuspid pretty easily, diffusion-wise, into the left ventricle. From the left ventricle, we then pump through the aortic semilunar valve, out through the aorta, arteries, arterioles, capillaries, venules, veins, back to vena cava, and we're right back where we started. So to look at some of these other things and some of their specialties, we can remember that all arteries are resistance vessels. They have elastic capabilities for recoil. So if the heart's going to pump high pressure, which it has to try to get blood everywhere, it's coming out of the left side, pretty high pressure. The artery has this ability to expand to take that blood, but it quickly wants to snap back. And what that does is hold the pressure to push it forward. all the valves you see, whether it be bicuspid, tricuspid, semilunar valve, all of them prevent backflow. The blood wants to go with least resistance. The valve shuts the door, and we have to take the pressure and push it forward. So, arteries are resistance vessels, and veins are capacitance vessels. At any given time, most of your blood's found in the veins. You think the walls of veins get weaker with age? They start showing up, don't they? Don't get me preaching. I got to preaching yesterday. Darn near got an amen. Yeah. Let's see. Veins, if we do a vein artery comparison, arteries are much thicker. They have more smooth muscle, which gives them that elastic recoil and flexibility. Where veins are thinner and they're more like a water balloon. The more you put in them, the bigger they get. They don't necessarily have that elastic recoil. But if your body needs to increase blood flow and speed things up, it'll dilate the arteries because we already have pressure to keep blood moving. And dilating arteries will reduce resistance. But we'll have to constrict the veins. If we don't, they'll just pool up. So that increases blood flow through the whole process, is dilating arteries and constricting veins. Now, veins also have one-way valves. That prevents backflow. So we're dealing with pretty low pressure time we get to the veins. Look, by the time we go through small arterioles, capillaries, let me give you an idea about capillaries. There's 1,250,000 capillaries per square inch of your body. Now, who sat around and calculated that? Had no life whatsoever. But they're so small, a red blood cell is 8 micrometers in size. Now, if you don't know what a micrometer is, which most of us don't, teensy weensy, itsy bitsy, itty bitty, tiny whiny, very small. I mean, there's a lot of descriptive terms to say microscopic. If we take 50 red blood cells and stack them shoulder to shoulder, side by side, they'd reach across a period at the end of a sentence in your book. That's how small a capillary is. So red blood cells literally squeeze to get through a capillary, which is good because capillaries are where gas and nutrient exchange occur at the cellular level. If we was pumping through there with high pressure, it'd be like a bus stopping at a bus stop at 50 miles an hour. I'm gonna throw the door open, get ready. You better jump. If you jump now, you'll probably hit the target right up there. And that's what it would, nobody want to get on or off. And you know, the guy up there trying to get on, he's taking off running before the bus gets there and tries to shove over to the bus by the time it gets even, you know. So it's important that it goes through slow and one bus at a time. You don't pull 20 buses up to a bus stop and expect something to happen that's good. That wouldn't be good. So we slow things down, pretty resistant here, but the most resistant vessel of all are the arterioles. Arterioles have the capability of totally dilating and letting blood flow, or totally constricting and stopping blood flow altogether. That's about as extreme as you can get on both ends. Can't take no more, man. There's only so much you can take. Increase in circulation? Okay. All right. So if we take average pressure in the arteries, what's normal blood pressure? 120/80. Right now it's still considered normal. They're still tossing around all rather crazy ideas. It's not normal.
They're trying to make it even lower.
I know.
It's ridiculous.
I'm happy if I'm in 120/80.
Too.
I'm happy if I'm 138/88. Just as long as I stay below 90, I'm happy. Average blood pressure of 120/80 would be 100. Okay, that would be your mean average in the arterial system. You know what the average in the venous system is in that returning blood? What the pressure is? Average is 2 millimeters of mercury. So you understand why it kind of wants to set in the veins and pool up. So how do we get it back? If, you know, at the very beginning it's 10, At the beginning of the vena cava, it's 0. We average the whole venous system, it averages 2. How does the blood get back? That is a component of the circulatory system. Trying to find positive things here.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. No, thank you. What'd I say a while ago? You move, blood moves. Muscle contraction. The muscle pump is the number one means of venous return. There we go. Number one means of venous return. No. It's the number one means of venous return. Muscle pump. You move, blood moves. You don't move, blood don't move. That's pretty
Say that
simple.
again.
If you don't have any arteries, blood don't move. Does that help?
Muscle pump is the number one word.
Number one means of venous return. We gotta get up and move around.
I don't know if
Go get some exercise.
So you gained 300 pounds.
Increase that heart rate. Do that cardio. We get better at it. The worst thing you can do if you have swelling in your feet is sit down. Get up and move. That's killed a lot of people when doctors told them, you need to sit down and prop your feet up. They think they should do that the rest of their life. It kills them.
I said, my grandma's doctor's a quack, cause that's what he told her to do.
It's ridiculous. It killed my wife's grandmother when they told her the same thing. At 90, she was walking a mile a day, and her feet started swelling. You're 90. What do you expect? My feet swell. I'm not 90. He said, you probably need to prop those feet up. That's what she did. She died within a year with her feet propped up, and she was walking a mile a day at 90. Come on. You gotta help that system work a little bit because heart's on its last leg probably, right? Well, as long as you're able, get out there and do something. Move. My old high school math teacher used to say, do something, even if you do it wrong. Just do something. Of course, he's just trying to get us to work a problem. You know? We didn't have a lot of hope in this. He retired right after my class. You don't see me teaching math either.
Was you at the top of your class?
So what? Do what?
Was you at the top of your class?
Absolutely. I was a co-valedictorian with 2 other ones in my class. Of course, there's only 3 in the class. But actually, we had 33 in the class. There's 3 of us valedictorians. One of them's a corporate lawyer in California. The other one's a medical doctor.
One's a
I'm a
teacher.
lowly school teacher. Who do you think makes the most money? Not I. Of course, if I didn't pass out at the sight of blood, I could have been a doctor. I could have killed as many people as they do.
But you
And then the
got
corporate
everything
lawyer
else.
could have sued us for it. There you have it. All right, they're talking about what we just said right there in the book. Takes us over to 700, respiration. As we summarize up circulation here, just the study guide for this is very good. I've looked at it recently. There's a lot of circulation questions. If you know this, you'll answer a lot of questions because there'll be questions on the test that'll ask, blood goes where from here? So if you know it goes to the lungs from the right ventricle, that's a good start. If you know what makes up the systemic circuit compared to the pulmonary, lungs compared to the rest of the body. Bicuspids on the left side, tricuspids on the right side. There's just a lot of anatomical questions about this. It's not hard, but if you don't know them off the top of your head and you choose not to study, that makes them extremely hard. So know this circulation. Know that circulation. Now we're ready to jump into respiration. Do what?
Would you say bicuspids on the left side?
Yes. Now, it's also known as the mitral valve. That's the reason I put that in parentheses. I don't know whoever taught this for me years ago, but ventral, it shouldn't be ventral, it's mitral. Probably just couldn't read my writing. All right, looking at respiration, the next topic, gas exchange. know this will come shocking to you, but we don't have the most efficient respiratory system known. Yeah, I figured that would upset you. I hear the mumbling, it's like we've been cheated. The average grasshopper beats. Now, there's plenty of hoppers out there. Take your frustrations home and step on one and say, breathe now. Or get a wolf of my foot with your respiratory system. It's called a tracheal system. And the tracheal system is more efficient because it's a direct airflow system. You ever had a grasshopper land on your windshield? Now, next time one lands on your windshield, before you hit the washer and so watch this, project him off there. Watch him on the windshield for a minute. Watch his abdomen swell and shrink. And it's not getting ready to attack you or anything, like some people would think. He may spit a little tobacco on the windshield before you hammer him, but watch that abdomen swell and shrink. Well, along the sides of the abdomen are little holes called spiracles. And when the abdomen swells, air rushes in. When it rushes in, it goes straight to the tissues. It doesn't go to the lungs and then jump over the blood, and then the circulatory system take it to where it needs to go, and then we pick up the trash, bring it back to the lungs, and then breathe it out. It goes straight to the system, and the trash comes right back. Every time it shrinks, we force air out. Every time it swells, air rushes in. Direct airflow. Very, very efficient. They have no lungs. They have no lungs. So, now, if we do some, of course, this is in the same chapter, so it makes sense. If we do some animal comparisons here, going back to the heart and looking at lungs too, how many chambers does a human heart have?
4.
4. 2? Oh. How many chambers does a bird heart have?
1.
4.
4.
No change. How many chambers does an alligator have? We should probably know this from watching Swamp People or something. Educational shows. 4. Still 4. No trick questions yet. I hadn't got into the tricky ones yet. Let's see. How many chambers would a snake heart have?
1.
4.
Thank you. I still hadn't got into tricky stuff yet. How about a dog and cat?
They don't
4.
have
You knew
They don't
that.
have hearts.
Some, I would agree. How many chambers does a frog heart have?
2. 4.
3. How many chambers does a fish heart have?
1.
4.
Okay.
You have to have more than 1, right?
2.
You always have
Hey
to have
guys,
2 or more.
Seventh is on 694.
You know, it'd be amazing if y'all actually come to class and read the chapter and answer questions correctly. But we have more fun this way. I can make more fun of you this way, right?
I like Jeopardy.
How's much more you
I need to reword my questions though, don't I? I need to make statements and you throw a question at me.
What is 2 chambers?
So, why are we changing the numbers of chambers in these hearts of different animals?
Because they're smaller.
Boy, they
Or
would take
bigger.
the risk.
There's some really small snakes that just have 4 chambers. There's some pretty big frogs. There's a frog in this book that we'll talk about named Goliath. He eats things as big as rats and ducks. That's why they named him Goliath. I mean, you don't want to hand-on-hand combat this dude.
Is there like a picture?
Duck
of the
Dynasty
kid
won't be
with the
attacking him from a boat, that's for sure. They'll be blowing him away with dynamite. Psy will get him. This frog's got legs that look like human legs, muscle. I mean, that's, but what the point I'm making it's all directly associated with respiration. A frog has 3 chambers because it has lungs, but it doesn't always use the lungs. The lungs are last resort in respiration for a frog. They'd rather diffuse the gases through the system. A fish has 2 chambers because it don't need the pulmonary side of the heart. It has gills. gills is direct association with blood flow, and we don't have to do it by way of heart to circulate. So everything else utilizing lungs, right? That we said 4 chambers, some kind of lung going on there. So that's the reason these chapters are really closely associated. If you quit breathing, your heart's not gonna last very long. If your heart quits, you're gonna quit breathing. Pretty closely associated there. Danged if you do and danged if you don't, so.
Holy cow, this frog is huge.
Did you find him?
Yeah, on Google.
You don't wanna mess with Goliath. You know, even our bullfrogs in our area, if if you torment them enough, they can inflict an extremely painful bite. Of course, they're not gonna bite a gig when you stab them with a gig, but they're just talking about if you captured one and you aggravate him enough, he got ticked off enough, he'd put a hurt on you. Goliath might just eat half of you. No questions asked. He's pretty scary.
He's big. There's a
I'm gonna have to watch what I'm saying because y'all gonna Google me, see if I'm lying to you or not. I usually make a lot of stuff up as I go.
Look, Mr. Warren.
Yes.
There's a picture of that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's one in her book too. That's a better picture.
That's
Hold him up
ridiculous.
to a man, he's half the body size. It's about him.
Where they find those things?
North Africa, I think, is where Goliath's from. North or south.
Did they eat?
That's,
Is he alive?
Yeah, he's
that's
alive.
their actual name is Goliath,
That's the name of the frog, is Goliath.
and they bite.
Mm-hmm.
They bite a lot.
Do they have teeth?
No, frogs don't truly have teeth. When we dissect the frog, we'll note that they have maxillary teeth, which is like, I don't know.
Is it like a fish?
Yeah.
Fish have teeth, right? Like
Well,
like
yeah,
a
but
thing.
it's just gripping teeth. It's not biting or chewing teeth. It's just a little thin line of almost sandpaper to grip something with is what they have. And then they have a pair of vomerine teeth in the top of the mouth. And I'm not sure they're even used to grip with. There's a couple of bumps in the top of the mouth, but
I bet they're loud.
probably.
There's all
Probably.
kinds of.
Let's talk about the respiration just for a second before we quit. Frogs breathe by positive pressure. Positive pressure breathers. In other words, they literally have to suck air in or swallow air in. They have to force air into their lungs. Most mammals, like us, breathe by negative pressure. And in negative pressure, we simply change air pressures inside of us compared to atmospheric pressure. Anybody had chemistry in here? Had enough chemistry to be dangerous?
Chemistry in high school.
What's normal atmospheric pressure? Hell, not even dangerous. 760 millimeters of mercury? That, okay, we recognize it when, all right, so in our cases with negative pressure breathers, when we raise our ribs and drop our diaphragm, our thoracic cavity gets larger, air pressure inside of us turns to about, 756 millimeters of mercury. So air out here rushes in because we're going from greater pressure at 760 to lesser pressure at 756, 757. It's 3 to 4 millimeters of mercury difference. So what it seems like we're sucking air in, we're opening airways, and airways are rushing in. Air is rushing through the airways. And then for us to exhale, it build pressure in here, diaphragm comes up, and cavity, the ribs drop and make it smaller, about 763, and we force air out. Always air left behind. There's about 1,200 milliliters left in the system at all times. That keeps the lungs inflated, and it makes it much easier for us to raise and air rush in. So that's negative. We breathe by negative pressure. Frogs breathe by positive pressure. Another comment on Goliath back there?
Yes. West Africa weighs 7.5 pounds.
West Africa.
557 is black and white.
Yeah, West Africa. What we have up on the board is some things going on with breathing. I think we'll start up there on Thursday. Thursday we'll start here at 11, then go up and do the lab test and finish that way? Lecture, okay, well, let's just start here at 11, do our lecture, and then we'll go up there and do the lab test. Anything else I might conjure up for labs, so if you don't mind hitting the red button on that.